All right, moving on to the last game. We have exactly 5 minutes left in the podcast. Perfect timing. The 6th seed Eagles versus the number 1 seed New Orleans Saints. The Eagles escape Chicago with a win. The Saints have been waiting. Their offense hasn't been the offense that we're used to the last couple weeks of the regular season, but we expect them to be ready to go. Jared, I'll let you take this away. What do you think happens in this game? Who do you think wins?
Yeah, this one, is kind of interesting because if you look back to earlier in the season, I believe it was like week 10 or week 11, the Eagles traveled to New Orleans, and New Orleans whooped them. And I mean absolutely dominated from the word go. I would also like to mention that Carson Wentz was the starting quarterback for the Eagles in that game, and he looked awful.
It's a
he
big
threw,
factor,
I think,
though.
2 or 3 interceptions in that game. So now you have Nick Foles, who hasn't necessarily gone up against this defense or this team, but to play in that Superdome with that crowd noise, I think is probably one of the toughest stadiums to play in, other than maybe the Chiefs in Arrowhead and probably Seattle with 12th man. I think that will be too much to overcome for this Eagles team. Listen, the Eagles squeaked into the playoffs, right, by the skin of their teeth with a win and much needed help by the Bears. And then they squeaked out a win against the Bears, who came within inches of making a field goal that doinked off the goalpost. I don't think there's any way the Eagles squeak by the Saints this week. Like I said, the Saints are another team that, because they played so well in the regular season, were awarded a bye. They got to, they've been at home for the last couple weeks. That Drew Brees and Sean Payton will be ready, just like the Patriots. They kind of have that same mentality as far as scheming-wise goes. I think the Saints win this game pretty handedly. Now, the Eagles' defense their front seven is good, and if the Eagles want any way of staying in this game, they have to disrupt Drew Brees. Yeah. If you let Drew Brees have a free pocket, I don't think this game is close at all. So I think this is probably the one game out of the 4 that could potentially get away from a team and become somewhat of a blowout.
Yeah, no, Jared, I completely agree. Interesting, just to give Philadelphia some credit, they faced Aaron Donald, J.J. Watt, and Khalil Mack in the last 4 games, and those guys have 0 sacks. So obviously their blocking scheme against star players is good. I don't think the Saints have anybody of that caliber, so you don't have to worry about that as much.
I mean, Cameron Jordan is a very good defender.
He's good, but they'll have a scheme to stop him. So I think that the front line, the defensive line is stopped. These DBs, though, they played the game of their life, or at least tried to against the Bears. I don't think that happens again. You can't stop the Saints. Nick Foles he cannot make the same mistakes he did against Chicago, or you're right, this game is going to turn into a horrible blowout. Saints defense needs to contain the rushing game, like Chicago did. I believe the Eagles' top rusher last game was Darren Sproles at 21 yards. So eliminate the RPO threat. You make Nick Foles throw the ball the whole time, you're not going to be successful. Drew Brees and Sean Payton are 5-0 at home in playoff history. There's another stat. Yeah, Saints win by at least 2 possessions in this game, whether that be by 9, 16, or 40. I think this is probably my game in my pick'em where I put the most stake on. I think the Saints win this one easy. I agree with you. Nick Foles, this offense is just not the same as the Super Bowl year, and they're not going to be able to do the same things they did.